This breakdown of episode 1 of the season 2 of Barry contains spoilers of this episode as well as some from season 1. Watch at your own risk. I am highly impressed with the season 2 premiere of Barry. The fact that they don't start right off from where they ended with the last episode of the first season is just bonkers, considering how the finale spurs some troubling questions. It's more like how everyone in this universe goes on with their life following the events from the last season. Fuchs, played by Stephen Root, tries to get another Barry to make money off of. It's weird that replacement Barry dresses the same as the real Barry did in season 1. What is kind of unbelievable about this sort of absurd scene is how the replacement is using a shotgun. Those are loud and they require drywall repair when used indoors. Did Fuchs not give him a pistol with a silencer? This is one of the few instances where the show pushes the grounded realism into absurdity for comedic effect. And we are back in LA in the Gene Cousineau acting studio, where Gene doesn't show up because he is still not over Moss's disappearance. Everyone except Barry is worried about what had happened, and everyone thinks that she died, whereas Barry acts as if she's missing or he is just plain ignorant of the situation. Barry knows what happened, but he acts as if he had nothing to do with it, of course. He tries to have some sort of normalcy, but everyone else is freaked out like they had been when Ryan Madison, one of the students, was murdered last season. Barry had felt some guilt about it later when he sees Ryan's dad in mourning, but for some reason he doesn't feel the same way about Moss. Either he doesn't feel bad about killing her, or she's somehow alive but in captivity. I don't know how the latter is feasible, but maybe that's why we're given a fresh start in this season. We're also given a look at NoHo Hank's transition into being a Chechen crime boss. Things are going well with his relationship with the Colombian crime boss, Cristobal Cifuentes, except for the fact that Cristobal also wants to work with Esther in the Burmese gang. Hank doesn't like the inclusion of another person and just only wants to work with Cristobal alone. One part that was just plain ridiculous, Esther just stabs her hand with a knife just to show how tough the Burmese are compared to the Chechens. Then this transitions into Barry visiting Gene to try to get him back into the acting class. Yes, Barry is that desperate to go to his teacher's house despite doing whatever he had done. What's pathetic on Barry's part is that Gene is telling Barry that he wants to kill himself and Barry doesn't get it. He's either really ignorant or he's not listening to him. Either way, it's stupidly funny. Guess what? Barry works at Lululemon now, and according to Sasha, he thought it was a candy store. Barry's acting like an idiot because he thinks that practicing a British accent at a retail store is appropriate when his co-worker and fellow acting friend Sasha is British. Barry is not being considerate, but it makes for some silly comedy. Bill Hader himself is very good at doing different voices, so it's good on his part to lower his skill level like how he did the bad acting from the previous season. What's that? NoHo Hank in a wig intrudes into Barry's attempt at normalcy? No way. Because the Chechens want to know who killed Goran? Yep, Barry, you're an idiot for staying in LA. You didn't think Hank would bother you again? Oh, you thought wrong, buddy. The criminal underworld doesn't understand the concept of forgiveness, so it's a vicious cycle of revenge and murder. Barry still disrespects Hank due to taking his polite nature for granted. There's a little palpable twinge in the affable gangster. A change of scenery has Fuchs being arrested and questioned by the Cleveland PD. I really love how he thinks he's so smart in not signing anything so we can get his DNA, but he ends up giving them the Coke can he drank out of by accident. It's just so abrupt, and it's an example of precise comedic timing. You have to watch this scene to believe it. It's not that amazing, but it's exactly how this show has no fat. It's very lean. And now we're back in LA before the opening night of the front page, and Cousineau is still MIA. Sally is worried about Barry not being present and mindful of the situation. She had heard him mutter earlier that it was all for nothing. She doesn't know what he means by that sinister notion. He's being dismissive of her feelings and concerns, and is being quite selfish. This is a lot different than from the season 1 Barry. Gene arrives and promptly cancels the show. Barry panics because Gene Jean also wants to just end the acting class altogether. Kuznau thinks that losing Janice is a similar experience to Barry's first kill as a Marine. This prompts Barry to tell his story, and the show brilliantly switches from the present to the past and back and forth again. I really like this sequence because Jean tells Nick and Sasha to go up there and improvise Barry's war story as he tells it. It's cringeworthy, but it's a perfect example of how this show balances the dark and the light. Their improvisations even make Jean's eyes roll to the back of his head. I'm glad that Jean knows what taste is. Can we talk about how happy Barry looked to finally get praise for killing the enemy? I have no idea if he killed civilians or actual militants. That was probably the most genuine smile you'll ever get from Barry Berkman. The saddest part of that is I speculate that Hader got the inspiration for that revelation from his experiences taking improv classes at Second City LA before he got SNL. Like, it's possible that Barry wasn't good at anything. He decided to join the Marine Corps, and then he shoots a guy 700 yards away, and all of a sudden that's the thing that he gets praised for. It's the first time that he's told that he's good at anything. That's the story that Bill Hader tells when he gives interviews about how he fell into improv comedy. He often says that taking those improv classes and having a teacher tell him that he was really good at this, and it was like the first time that he was told he was good at something. The irony in Barry's retelling of the events is that it was his proudest moment, but the other people in the class believe it destroyed him. He has to lie about it, even when asked by Jean if that was his truth. He has some idea that maybe his satisfaction with killing is rooted somewhere. He knows it's wrong, but it's not absolutely repulsive. Sally praises Barry for opening up in class and therefore saving the class. She wanted him to open up earlier because she thought he was acting weird. She was right. Barry was definitely aloof and inconsiderate of people's concerns due to the circumstances of Moss's disappearance. I mean, Ryan Madison was murdered not too long ago, so that happening again should spook them a little. Some may perceive Sally as selfish for not wanting to spend time with Barry after he had just opened up, but I mean, if she has to talk to an agent to further her career, so be it. It's not easy to break through in Hollywood. It's also the way that she explains when she is free that may be off-putting to some, but I don't think it's that bad. It's just her track record from last season carries over into this, so it's just as if it's like typical Sally. It's typical of her to phrase things like that, but at least she's giving Barry notice. It's not like she's being that last minute with him. That's right, I'm defending Sally. But I'll be honest that I didn't really like her character all that much either, but with Barry's newfound confidence in this season compared to last, she is not that bad. Barry and Sally are both emotionally immature. It's just that the stakes are life and death for Barry, and they're much lower for Sally. We can deal with Barry for now because we understand what kind of pressure he's under, and Sally seems trivial in comparison. It shouldn't make her problems any less though, because at least she's obeying the law. Barry is constantly breaking the law, and he acts immorally. Right after this, we see Hank, and he's not happy with Barry. He plainly tells Barry that he disrespected him and he needs to do what he says. Otherwise, he has the ability to ruin Barry's life. This is just what happens when someone becomes the boss. He could have gave Barry away, but he did him a favor, whether Barry knew it or not, and Barry needs to repay it. However, this may plant something in Barry's mind that he needs to maybe end his relationship with Hank somehow, because if he's still tied to a crime organization, then they can still disrupt his life.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
I also appreciate how this scene gives Hank more depth as a character. Like, he came off as a goofy Chechen gangster last season, but now we know that he has feelings and he can get hurt. It just wasn't as apparent in season 1. Like, even when Goran disrespects him for saying what he thinks Barry would do after messing up the hit on Cristobal, he doesn't lose his cool on screen. And he's been verbally abused a lot by like Barry and Goran. How this episode ends is on a low flow of uncertainty. Like, if you thought Barry getting stuck with the Chechens was bad, wait until you see that now the cops are onto Fuchs, which ties him to Barry. I thought Barry was scot-free of any legal consequences, but the detectives are like, not so fast, buddy. I'm glad that everything appears to be going to shit already. It will make for one intriguing season. Right from the gate, Barry's reality seems to be in trouble, and it appears that he will constantly make bad decisions in order to try to have some semblance of a normal life. Any effort he makes, which tends to be immoral, just sinks him further back into darkness. As much as he tries, I don't believe that there's going to be a good ending for him. But the nature of the human spirit to just keep overcoming tough circumstances is what makes this show compelling. Finally, I don't feel as bad for Barry being a hopeless hitman because he's finally more assertive, considering that Fuchs isn't currently in his life anymore. With that assertiveness, he still is not human or empathetic to the circumstances. Like, he didn't know how to live his life in season 1, being all tied to being a hitman, and he felt that he didn't have a purpose in that anymore and was super depressed. Now he's taking more control of his life, but he still doesn't understand the full flavors to it. Being in the military and unable to live a normal life after all these years since he's like 40 has been devastating to his growth as a person. Anyways, thank you for watching. This probably will just be a one-time video for this season, but I would have liked to have done a weekly series. Berkeley sucks and takes up way too much of my time, and I'm just trying to pass at this point. So if somehow I have the time, I will just do a breakdown based on whatever the most recent episode that aired, because I do speculate when I think about the show. I probably won't go back to the episodes that I don't cover on time, but I might just try to do a more traditional review for them.